What happens when Japan's prime minister sits down with Donald Trump? The world is watching, but not everyone sees the same thing. Today, we're breaking down how the United States, Europe, China, and Japan itself each interpreted the recent summit between Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi and President Donald Trump. The differences are fascinating, and they reveal a lot about where global politics stands right now. Let's start with the United States. American media largely framed this as a win, or at least a near miss avoided. The headline from several outlets? Takaichi came out almost unscathed. Trump himself praised Japan, saying, and I'm paraphrasing here, that Japan is ready to step up, unlike NATO allies who keep dragging their feet. The Hudson Institute, a major Washington think tank, described the visit as Japan demonstrating that it's a reliable ally, one whose priorities closely align with America's own. On the economic side, the big story was Japan's second package of investments into the United States, including joint development of small modular nuclear reactors. That was music to American business ears. One interesting footnote there was no joint press conference after the meeting. Some analysts read that as both sides agreeing to keep any disagreements out of the public eye, Europe's reaction was more analytical and a bit more cautious. Chatham House, the prestigious British Foreign Policy Institute, had predicted before the summit that Takaichi would face tough questions, especially around the war in the Strait of Hormuz and Japan's oil dependency. After the meeting, European commentators gave Takaichi points for diplomatic skill. They saw her as someone who navigated Trump's demands without making any dangerous commitments. But Europeans also noted something else: Trump's enthusiasm for the meeting wasn't purely about Japan. His real audience may have been China. By embracing a hawkish, security-minded Japanese leader, Trump was sending a signal to Beijing about America's presence in Asia. So in Europe's reading, Takaichi played her cards well, but Trump was also playing his own game. China's reaction? Pretty much exactly what you'd expect. Beijing formally pushed back against the summit through its foreign ministry. And there's context here. Back in November 2025, Prime Minister Takaichi had described a potential Chinese invasion of Taiwan as an existential threat to Japan itself. That language sparked fury in Beijing. Then, at the Munich Security Conference, China's top diplomat Wang Yi reportedly called Japan a militarist state, a deeply charged accusation given World War II history. China also sees the economic side of the summit as a threat. Japan and the United States agreed to deepen cooperation on critical minerals, rare earths, and other resources that China has been using as economic leverage. For Beijing, the Takaichi-Trump summit wasn't diplomacy. It was the enemy strengthening their alliance. Back in Tokyo, the dominant feeling was relief. The Japanese government itself said privately that they had avoided the worst-case scenario. The biggest fear going in? That Trump would demand Japan send warships through the Strait of Hormuz as part of the Iran conflict. Takaichi managed to sidestep that commitment, and that was seen as a diplomatic victory by both the ruling coalition and the opposition. But Japanese media wasn't purely celebratory. The Nikkei noted that keeping the United States genuinely committed to Asia's security will require continued effort. The Asahi Shimbun asked harder questions, suggesting that serious doubts remain about how deeply America is really invested in the region. Across East and Southeast Asia, the South China Morning Post captured the mood well, arguing that Japan found itself in a more defensive position than expected, squeezed between the Iran crisis, trade tariff pressures, and Chinese economic retaliation. So what's the takeaway? The Takaichi-Trump summit looked different depending on where you were standing. America saw a cooperative ally delivering economic value. Europe saw a skilled diplomat navigating a complicated partner. China saw a threat being formalized. And Japan saw a crisis narrowly avoided, with bigger questions still unanswered. The one thing everyone agrees on? The Iran conflict changed everything. What was supposed to be a meeting about China and Asia's future got pulled into the Middle East. And that uncertainty about where America's attention really lies is something Asia is going to be watching very closely in the months ahead. If you found this analysis useful, hit like and subscribe. We'll keep tracking how these global perspectives evolve. Thanks for watching. What if you could learn real TOEIC vocabulary from actual world news? Today, we're pulling 30 essential TOEIC words straight from the story. You just heard the summit between Japan's Prime Minister Takaichi and US President Trump. Every word here appears in real English media and on the TOEIC test. Let's get started. Our first group is about diplomacy and politics. Summit. The Takaichi Trump Summit was watched closely around the world. Summit means a high-level meeting between leaders of countries. You'll see this in TOEIC Part 7, reading passages about international business or politics. Ally. Japan demonstrated that it is a reliable ally. An ally is a country or person that supports and cooperates with another. The plural is allies. Common in TOEIC contexts, business allies, strategic allies. Commitment. She navigated Trump's demands without making any dangerous commitments. A commitment is a pledge or obligation to do something. On the TOEIC, you'll often see fulfill a commitment, honor a commitment. Diplomatic. European commentators praise Takaichi's diplomatic skill. Diplomatic means relating to managing relations between countries, or being tactful. Related words diplomat, diplomacy, all common in TOEIC reading. Coalition. The decision was supported by both the ruling coalition and the opposition. A coalition is an alliance formed by different groups or political parties. In business English, a coalition of companies form a coalition. Signal. By embracing Japan, Trump was sending a signal to Beijing. To signal means to convey a message or intention, often indirectly. TOEIC usage. Signal confidence. Signal a change in policy. Navigate. Prime Minister Takaichi navigated a very difficult political situation. To navigate means to find a way through a complex or difficult situation. Business TOEIC context. Navigate market challenges. Navigate regulations. Bilateral. The bilateral meeting covered trade, security, and energy. Bilateral means involving two parties or two countries. Contrast with multilateral, involving many parties. Both appear on the TOEIC. Retaliation. Japan was squeezed between tariff pressures and Chinese economic retaliation. Retaliation means taking action against someone who has harmed you. TOEIC context. Trade retaliation. In retaliation for the tariffs. Opposition. The outcome was praised by both the ruling party and the opposition. Opposition refers to resistance, or the political party that opposes the government. Also used in business, face opposition from stakeholders. Next up, business and economy words that appear constantly on the TOEIC. Investment. Japan announced a second package of investments into the United States. Investment is money or resources put in to gain future benefit or profit. One of the most common TOEIC words. Also, investor, return on investment, cooperation. The two countries agreed to deepen cooperation on critical minerals. Cooperation means working together to achieve a shared goal. Common phrase, in cooperation with. Related, cooperate, cooperative. Leverage. China has been using rare earths as economic leverage. Leverage is the power or advantage used to achieve a desired result. Business TOEIC. Use leverage in negotiations. Financial leverage. Priority. The two countries' priorities were closely aligned. A priority is something treated as more important than other things. Frequent TOEIC phrase, top priority. Set priorities. Prioritize. Dependency. Japan's oil dependency made the Iran conflict especially urgent. Dependency is the state of relying heavily on something or someone. Related, dependent. Reduced dependency on imports. Reliable. Japan is seen as a reliable partner by the United States. Reliable means consistently trustworthy and dependable. Very common in TOEIC Part 5 grammar questions. Also reliability and reliably. Align. Their strategic interests align closely with each other. To align means to bring into agreement or cooperation. Business usage. Align goals. Align with company values. Misaligned. Analyst. Several analysts warned that Japan remained in a defensive position. An analyst is an expert who examines information and provides assessments. Common TOEIC roles. Financial analyst, market analyst, policy analyst. Pragmatic. Her approach was widely seen as pragmatic and skillful. Pragmatic means dealing with situations in a realistic, practical way. Business context. A pragmatic solution. Take a pragmatic approach. Framing. The framing in American media was largely positive. Framing is the way a situation or story is presented to an audience. Also used in business, framing a proposal, reframing the problem. Our final 10 words are about analysis, judgment, and nuance. All common in TOEIC reading passages. Analytical. Europe took a more analytical view of the summit. Analytical means using careful, logical examination to understand something. Job descriptions on the TOEIC often say, strong analytical skills required. Cautious. The European response was cautious and measured. Cautious means careful to avoid potential problems or dangers. Related caution, cautiously, exercise caution, all appear on the TOEIC. Interpretation. Each region had a different interpretation of the same summit. Interpretation is the way something is understood or explained. TOEIC context. Open to interpretation. Interpret data. Misinterpretation. Skeptical. Asian media remain skeptical about America's long-term commitment. Skeptical means having doubts or not being easily convinced. Business usage. Skeptical of the proposal. Remain skeptical. Dominant. The dominant feeling in Tokyo was relief. Dominant means most powerful, important, or influential in a situation. Business TOEIC. The dominant player in the market. Dominant position. Concession. She avoided making any major concessions on the military issue. A concession is something granted or yielded in response to demands. Negotiation. TOEIC context. Make a concession. Extract concessions. Uncertainty. The uncertainty about America's direction left Asia watching closely. Uncertainty is the state of not knowing what will happen or what is true. Business TOEIC, economic uncertainty. Uncertainty in the market. Amid uncertainty. Conflict. The Iran conflict reshaped the entire agenda of the summit. Conflict is a serious disagreement, struggle, or armed confrontation. Also used in business conflict of interest. Resolve. A conflict. Conflicting views. Perspective. Each country brought a very different perspective to the same event. Perspective is a particular way of viewing or thinking about something. TOEIC usage. From a business perspective, gain perspective. Shift perspective. Implication. The implications of this summit will be felt across Asia for years. An implication is a possible consequence or something suggested indirectly. TOEIC reading. The implications of this policy. Broader implications. Imply. And there you have it, 30 essential TOEIC words, all from one real news story. The best way to remember vocabulary is to see it in real context. And it doesn't get more real than this. Try using 5 of these words in your own sentences today. Like and subscribe for more vocabulary lessons like this one.